It's not labeled red, so I'm going to read it. 2 visual Sasquatch encounters by 2 law enforcement officers. Hello, Steve. You said in a recent video that you wanted to hear from LEOs, so here you go. I've been on your channel for some time and have followed your journey as the voice for folks who have encountered these Sasquatch beings. You have my and so many others' gratitude for providing a place for the folks to safely share their stories and to share knowledge about this topic with the rest of us. Who I am is not so important, so I'll spare you my background, other than to say I'm a veteran federal LEO with over 30 years experience. That said, I've followed this topic for many years and tried to learn as much about these beings as I could. Only a complete idiot would look at the overwhelming and clear evidence of the existence of Sasquatch and still come away saying it is all fake and bullshit. Agreed. And appreciate you coming forward, man. I'm writing to share the encounter of 2 of my friends who are both veteran law enforcement officers with decades of experience. Both men are stand-out professionals and about as honest and straightforward as they come. Both have impeccable credentials, and their honesty and candor is absolute. I asked them to share their stories, and both said let her rip. Beautiful. Encounter 1 is from a friend who is a still working police sergeant of 20 years, experience in North California. In January this year, he was driving through southern Humboldt County in northwestern California about 8 p.m. when he rounded a corner on the highway at about 45 miles per hour and witnessed a very large being laying sideways on the side of the paved road along the white bog line at the shoulder. When he saw it, he slowed and noticed it was propped up on its elbow and facing away from him. This sounds familiar, might have read it, but who cares? Reading it again. But we've had a handful of people say the same thing, laying there. He said it was enormous and thickly muscled, was brownish in color and approximately 7 feet tall. This man has spent hundreds of days in the woods, hunted and been around many bears. He drove around the corner in a state of disbelief at what he had just seen, then turned around to go back. When he came back a couple minutes later, the Sasquatch was gone. Nobody knows why it was laying on the side of the highway, but perhaps it had been struck by a vehicle and injured or dazed. This region in Northern California has had many, many sightings over the years, and he is now a member of the Club of No Return. The second encounter I'll share is from my closest friend, who is a veteran federal LEO, who was my partner at an agency for several years before he transferred to another federal agency in Washington State. He has lived his life in the woods and knows his business back and front. When the friend in this first encounter shared a story with me, I decided to contact my Washington State buddy, who lives in one of the most notorious locations for Sasquatch sightings and encounters in North America, the Mount St. Helens region of the Cascade Range. I just had a feeling and followed your guidance when asking someone about possible encounters. I called him on the phone one recent evening, and in a very serious manner, I asked if he had ever seen or heard anything strange while on patrol. He went quiet for a moment and said, "Do you mean Bigfoot?" I said, "Yes." The phone got quiet for a handful of seconds, and he said that what he was about to tell me, he had never told anyone before, and this is his story. In September/October 2008, while working up in a mountainous area of his patrol sector, he was at a gate and checking on a surveillance camera on a logging road in the early morning when he heard a distinct thud hit the ground somewhere in front of his patrol vehicle, followed by an immediate grunt. He stepped around the back of his patrol vehicle, and 60 feet away, standing on the right of the logging road, was a male Sasquatch. It had just jumped off a steep embankment and had landed in the road on its feet. When my friend saw it, he had that disbelief cycle for a couple of seconds as he watched it walk across the logging road and down into the timber. He told me it scared the shit out of him. But he jumped into his vehicle and drove right over to where it had entered the timber just a handful of seconds earlier, and it was nowhere in sight. Despite a clear line of sight, very little ground cover. Through the timber for about 100 yards. He described it as very dark, thickly built, and about 6 feet tall. This friend of mine and I have been in several scraps over the years as partner officers, and I know him to be unafraid of anyone or anything and trust him with my life. He's a very large and powerful man and has that switch to flip when the time comes. When he told me that the encounter scared the shit out of him, I took notice. He's kept this hidden from anyone knowing for 13 years until I asked him in a straightforward and respectful way, just as you recommended. Thanks again, Steve. Strength and honor, SRJ.